This is the Board of Commissioners meeting for Monday, April 26th, 2021. It's being streamed live on Zoom and also live on YouTube. We have a number of different attendees who are going to participate directly on the Zoom meeting. If you'd all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start the meeting by giving notice of an executive session that was held on April 22nd, 2021 among the Board of Commissioners for the purposes of discussing personnel issues. Moving on to the initial public participation. If you'd like to participate, please raise your hand in the Zoom application. Mr. Schwartz, I am asking you to unmute.
Thank you, Jack. Good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Schwartz. I live at 16 Arthur Road. I just wanted to present, I believe tonight, the cul-de-sac storm drain project is going to be called out to be canceled. And I just wanted to give my my feedback on that project. Is now a good time to talk about that, or should I hold off until later?
I don't think it is. Then, Bill, can you confirm that it's not on the agenda? I mean, Mr. Rich, I mean, we definitely want to hear you speak, but I don't think it's on the agenda. Bill?
Yeah, the cancellation did not make the agenda based on our conversations last week to potentially regroup on that, based on feedback that we received from Mr. Schwartz and one other neighbor.
So
okay,
Mr. Schwartz,
fantastic.
You've got time to talk if you'd like to, but it sounds like this is not an issue for tonight.
Sure, I'll be real quick. I just, I resurrected the pooling standing water issue back in 2016, 2018. Steve Norsini, Sean and I met, and I passed the issue to the neighbor at 17 Arthur Road. They have since moved, but the issue still exists. So I believe, and so do others in the neighborhood, that the resolution presented to us by Radnor Township fixes the problem that was presented to you and Radnor Township. I believe there's other issues that other residents believe exist on the street, but I, along with others, feel that, again, this resolution that you presented not only solves the issue, but saves taxpayers money. And for that reason, I believe, and so do others, that it's a good project to move forward with.
Great.
And that's all I got. Over. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. Is there any additional public participation? Cameron Azzarano, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that last name or first name.
You did great. You did great. Well done. You didn't say Carmen. I usually get Carmen the first time. Is this an appropriate time to speak about Fenimore Woods? Sorry, I'm making sure, or is it?
So this is public comment at the outset of the agenda.
Okay.
Fenimore Woods is not on our agenda today, as I think I emailed earlier, but you are free to talk about anything that you want to for the next 5 minutes, including baseball scores. The time is yours.
Sounds great. I will keep it short because I was on the Shade Tree Commission meeting on Wednesday, and I think it became very clear that there are some things that need to be worked out with the current plan, but moreover, that there was, a fair amount of residents who spoke up who never really knew about the plan and also have some strong feelings about the decision to completely, in my opinion, destroy Fenimore Woods and lose the character that we have of a natural wooded area. So I think I also just want to say that I've been very grateful for the level of response within the township, Parks and Rec, Shade Tree, with the Board of Commissioners. I think you all have been very mindful and interested to listen. So I appreciate that. I do think there really is a very large amount of people out there who still need to know about this project. And I really would urge urge you all, when the time is appropriate and the considerations are being made, to really stop and consider what Fenimore Woods is. And I think it requires being in the park. I think that's probably one of the things that I got from the Shade Tree meeting that caused me a bit of concern, is a sense that some of the people may not even really know what the park is by being in it and spending time in it. So again, I appreciate the willingness to listen and consider that there could be a different way to go about the improvements while still maintaining the integrity and historical character of the wooded park. Thank you.
Is there any additional public comment?
2 more hands are raised.
Mr. Camerata?
Yes, Don Camerata. My name is Don Camerata with Covanta, and I wanted to speak on Resolution 2021-52. And may I proceed?
Yeah, you truly can speak about anything that you guys want to. This is your time.
Okay. Well, thank you for allowing me here this evening. I am a business manager with Covanta over on 10 Highland Avenue in Chester. I realize there's a resolution on the agenda with respect to the contract between Covanta and the Delaware County Solid Waste Authority. I'm asking the board to vote no on this resolution. Not that we totally disagree with it, but it's mainly on the basis that the resolution contains many misleading and non-factual relationships in the citations. And first of all, Covanta operates well below its permit levels. Some of the criteria components are less than 99% of our permit. So if we were to be allowed to run at 100, we're operating at 1. The criterion emissions such as nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, and particulate matter are minority sources compared to all the other categories in Delaware County. And for example, it's cited as far as particulate matter 10, we make up less than 1% of the total inventory in Delaware County. So 99% of the particulate matter come from other sources. Yet, if you read the resolution, it appears and implies that Covanta is the cause of the multiple health effects in the Chester residents, ignoring all other sources of emissions and ignoring household environments as well. And while at the same time citing data from 2010, that's over almost 12 years ago. Also cited is the put or pay clause that outlines that put or pay clause in the resolution. The put or pay clause, as written, again, is a misleading statement because it's only telling you half of the story. The put or pay clause is there to protect the county, requiring Covanta to supply sufficient daily cover for landfill operations. Without that daily cover, the county is exposed to significant excess costs and reductions in issues in their operations there. So that's a mutually beneficial clause that was put into the agreement 5 years ago. However, don't get me wrong, Covanta, I'm not arguing for that clause. All I'm saying is that there is a reciprocal agreement there and that we remain flexible in the upcoming negotiations to develop terms that make sense, not only for Covanta, but also for the residents of Delaware County and the Delaware County Solid Waste Authority. The other thing here is that the resolution tends to state that and imply that energy from waste or waste to energy is what Covanta does. And recycling and reduction of waste are incompatible with one another. That's contrary to all data that's there. In fact, Europe is 10 years ahead of us at this point in time. And their industries, their recycling rates, their waste reduction rates are way up, where at the same time, in the last 5 years, they've built over 100 of these facilities as a means to attacking greenhouse gases. Waste to energy is a tool for reduction of greenhouse gases, and that's, again, not mentioned in their resolution. So as opposed, I ask and invite the Environmental Advisory Committee to sit down with Covanta. We've never sat down together. So what you have is only one half of the story. We will sit down and go through the information that we have, the information that we report to the state, and using current data as opposed to data from 2010. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Vernisi, you are up next.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
We gotcha.
Great, thank you. My name is Paul Vernisi. I live at 470 Glenmary Lane in Wayne. And I'm just would like to comment on the Fenimore Woods project. Similar to the previous participant, I also have some significant concerns with the project plan as it currently stands, mainly because it would destroy the unique characteristic nature of the park, which is as a very natural woodsy type of an environment, which I think is great for all of the people that I know that use the park, and especially also for the children that use the park as a place to play. So I would really like it if the Board of Commissioners would consider reconsidering or bringing it back up on the agenda for a future meeting to discuss, and hopefully come up with an alternative plan that does not diminish so much the woods and the mature tree canopy that's such a fundamental characteristic nature of the park. So thanks in advance if you could do this.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you all. Moving to the consent agenda. Is there any item that a commissioner would like to pull from the consent agenda?
E. No, not E. Yeah, E.
Okay, any other items?
I was going to ask for E as well.
Got it. Okay, item 2E, resolution 2021-44, authorizing the extension of the contract with cleannet USA to provide custodial services for the Radnor Municipal Building, Radnor Activity Center, and Public Works Facility. I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Bill, are you able to tell us about that?
Yeah, I'll lead it in, and then if there are more particular questions, this is something that Mike Simmons in the Public Works Department oversees. This is well, back in 2018, the township went out to RFP. cleannet was the company that was awarded the project or awarded the contract. We've been relatively satisfied with their service. They're agreeing to hold their rates the same for another year. And so we're reaching the end of this term and are seeking approval to extend it for another year.
Can I, Bill, are you?
Yeah, that.
Okay. So my, I guess, question is, it's a large contract, 133,000, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. What, and this may be a more of a logistics question. I just think, me personally, that is too large of a contract to go on the consent agenda. Is there a number where it would fall, anything under X has to go to the board?
This is the board.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Thank you, Jack. Go to the board and not on consent agenda.
I mean, no, there's no rule about what goes on consent agenda in particular. These are just.
So you could put a $10 million contract on the consent agenda.
Sure.
Okay.
I guess,
So,
Sean, I would
hold on,
agree.
Rich, so there's nothing in the charter that says, there's no size, Bill?
Not
Okay,
not that
All
I'm
right.
aware of.
okay, thank you.
I guess, could I just follow up on Sean's questions? Is that, is there sort of an internal practice that you decide, sort of what amount it goes directly as an agenda item and what's on consent agenda?
Well, typically things that are more in the realm of the day-to-day operations would fall under consent. Honestly, admittedly, this is a big contract. It's one of our higher operating expenses that we have. That honestly, I mean, that didn't raise any flags when we were putting the agenda together.
Is it because this is an ongoing contract? Has this been in place for several years with this,
Yeah.
with the same vendor?
Yeah, the same vendor
Okay.
since 2018.
That's all I have. Thank you.
The consent agenda is supposed to be recurring and administrative items only. It's supposed to be items that are in the nature of recurring and administrative approvals. Any contract really should not be on there, I would say. One that comes up every 3 or 4 years or 2 years is not a recurring item. And the way we use a consent agenda, I think, is improper. And much more of the things that are on consent agenda should be on the regular agenda and not put in the consent agenda and approved en masse with mundane and administrative items.
Guys, a lot of townships have work sessions where they talk about items that then end up going on a consent agenda for later discussion. We don't do work sessions here. There is no rule about what should or should not go on the executive session in Radnor Township. In this case, we generally speaking set up the consent agenda to be items that we anticipate will not generate a whole lot of concern. Let's talk about what we're talking about. Is there any actual substantive issues with respect to this contract that the board wants to discuss?
So I don't really have a substantive issue with the contract. I do remember when we went out to RFP and they did come back as the best option back in 2018. So my question was more around the Radnor Activity Center, not to totally get us off track, but I just wanted to know, I know at one point we were having conversations with the school district around maintenance and things like that. Have any of those conversations continued? Have there been, and I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't ask this and derail us. I might derail us. I don't want to.
No, so yeah, they're two separate tracks. Tammy and her department currently programs or has programming at the Sulpizio gym. For that reason, having the custodial services is important, and that's what this contract would help pay for, the daily cleaning as required by the contract for the facility. For the programming side of things, the separate track is the larger capital items, the roof, the HVAC, and some of the leaking issues that are there. That is something else that we are working on putting some numbers together on. Once we have that, it'll be part of a different capital conversation. But this would be unrelated to that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have one last question about this contract. Does it include any uptick in the cleaning services that we've engaged because of COVID guidelines? And did the contract change because of that?
The contract didn't change. The cleannet was very responsive to our requests for additional hand washing stations, hand sanitizer stations. So no, it did not cost us more. cleannet did work with us. Some of the additional expense we incurred was outside of this contract unrelated, like the scanners at the entrance to the buildings, some of the hand sanitizer stations, stuff like that. We bought that separate of this contract. But cleannet, to their credit, was responsive and has helped out throughout the pandemic as we've requested without asking for more money.
Excellent. Great news.
Bill, just a quick question. So does this cleaning service also clean the nonprofit? I don't know the name. Are they responsible for their offices as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's been the case from day one.
Okay, that's in their lease,
Mhm.
that we take care of that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Is there any additional commissioner comment? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Hi.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. I will move for items 2A, B, C, D, and F, the balance of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Committee reports 3A, Memorial Day Parade discussion and authorization. Bill, could you lead us in? And then I suspect I know where we're going from there.
Yeah, I'll be happy to lead this in and then hand it off to Mr. Fulton and Mr. Costello. This conversation that we've had over the last couple of weeks, the Memorial Day Parade Committee has been working on organizing as they would in any other year except for last year, for obvious reasons. As we plan, or as they were planning for this year, they reached out to the township and are looking for authorization to proceed to make sure that the township is backing the parade plans that they are preparing and hope to have the parade on May 31st. I had sent an email to the board. Hopefully everyone got that on Friday, just outlining some work that we had asked our OEM team to do in terms of just cross-checking recommendations from the state and federal levels of government as it pertains to outdoor events. I think most of the information that we found is pretty consistent with what I think generally we're hearing when it comes to managing events during the pandemic, is that outdoor events are typically favorable towards indoor versus indoor events. But you still need to, the social distancing is still critical because the virus is spreading through close contact for the most part. Again, I'm sourcing the CDC there. That's not my conclusion. And so the fact that the Memorial Day Parade is an outdoor event, it's over a mile long. Hopefully we'll hear from the parade committee some protocols that they'll have in place to help ensure distancing and safety for those both participating and those enjoying the event. And then at the end of it, I think they're going to look to the board for some sort of direction. So that's the tee off. Mr. Fulton, if you want to take it from there.
I sure will. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate the intro. Thanks for listening to Marty and myself. Once again, honor our veterans as they have been honored for almost 100 years here in Radnor Township with the Memorial Day Parade. So as Mr. White mentioned, we're going to put some protocols in place. The parade actually begins at a staging area down at Radnor Financial. We will have an ample amount of signs everywhere, encouraging participants and people dropping off. I usually handle the dropping off area. We will have signage there, which is right in front of the Radnor Hotel, indicating to people to, as Mr. White mentioned, to pay attention to social spacing, social distancing, being aware of everybody's surroundings throughout that whole area down there. We normally have signage put up for where we want each individual group based on their registration to be. That will be even more spread out this year, as it has as it will be, to take precautions. The march begins down there. It goes up the hill, turns right at the light on Route 30 going west towards the center of Wayne, passing Cambria Court, Shimoni, and keep on right into the middle of Wayne. There'll be signage everywhere to make the public as well as the parade marchers aware of social spacing, social distancing. We usually recommend 50 feet between each group. Excuse me. The board's gonna meet tomorrow night, so I'm probably going to recommend that we increase that spacing between groups to 75 to 100 feet. It might make our parade a little bit longer, but then again, this is all about keeping parishioners, parade goers safe, as well as those who want to participate in it, as well as the community that wants to view it. We're going to have a review stand in front of the bank right in the middle of Wayne. There will be only 4 people on that review stand. The announcer, who will have a PA, and who will be encouraging people to stay either in their family groups or to practice social distancing as needed throughout the whole area in front of Wayne. We're also going to have several individuals walking back and forth, encouraging people to be mindful and to practice social distancing, as well as wearing masks. The same type of precautions will be met in the middle of Wayne, and then as we make a left-hand turn on South Wayne Avenue down to the Memorial, there'll be another PA system down there with the same type of revolving conversation going through over the PA for people who are showing up to please, be safe, wear a mask, practice social distancing, stay with your families. I'm assuming we're going to have a good turnout, since we didn't have we didn't have a parade at all last year. We just had an honorary ceremony at the memorial. So I'm really looking forward to a good turnout. We're also going to put everything. We have a doctor on our board. He's going to put together several links that we will put on our website, encouraging parade participants as well as the community to once again practice social spacing, social distancing. This is a voluntary event. In no way is this a mandatory event at all for the community. We're going to stress that very much so. We want people to show up. We want people to feel safe showing up. We will make sure that we do our best in notifying the public and also the parade participants of the safety precautions from beginning to end. And then again, when the parade, when the memorial is done, we're done reading the names, which is very solemn event. We'll be mentioning throughout that whole honorary ceremony down at the War Memorial to again, let people know that we're practicing social distancing, social spacing, et cetera, et cetera. It's a reoccurring theme, and I think it's really important that we make our community feel safe and be safe attending the parade. That's our primary goal here, as well as honoring our veterans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A little bit more about the parade. The Radnor band is going to be in the parade. They've already contacted us. I was talking to the principal in her office about this, and she got the band director, and they really want to do this. Paoli 1, which is the oldest Boy Scout troop in the United States, they contacted us, and they really want to participate in the parade. They haven't been in their cabin, and you know where the cabin is, all year. They've been doing things outside. They know how to social distance, and the parade route is a little over a mile long. And for some of you who have marched in it, you know that when you see the citizens on either side of the road for a mile, they're usually in family groups. So, the signs are for those who are not in a particular family. But when you see in the center of Wayne, the cars that are parked there overnight, they're family groups. And they sit on top of their cars and on the, and that's very important to know, that this is a family parade. And Lisa knows that when we read the names at the reopening of the Radnor Memorial Library, a lot of families who lost their loved ones in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam still live here in Radnor Township. So this is a very important parade for them, and it's very important for them to hear their families' names read at the memorial every year. I've talked to these people, I've been in this town for a long, long time, and this is what the Memorial Day Parade is all about. And but we've already talked to a number of people who want to participate in this parade, and it's pretty exciting. The gentleman that we selected for the Grand Marshal, and the police supervisor knows this, Lieutenant Colonel Benelli, he's 100 years old. He turned 100 on March 17th, and he was escorted from his daughter's home here in Radnor over to King of Prussia, where he had his 100th birthday party. And this gentleman, as he's sitting there in this restaurant, these different Air Force bases from around the world, and even the Air Force Academy had airmen participate in wishing this hero a happy 100th birthday. And it was, I've seen a lot of 100th birthday parties on TV and stuff, but nothing like this. This man is a true American hero. And I talked to his daughter and asked respectfully if he would wish to participate. And yes, he's in the background, absolutely. But he will not be on the grandstand. We're going to park him where the police car usually is by the grandstand. So as you're coming west, you'll be able to see this convertible with him in it. And the announcer, who's critical because they have to announce who's coming and all this kind of stuff, will say, here is the Lieutenant Colonel in this convertible right in front of the reviewing stand. We expect to put these signs on the telephone poles, the route on both sides of the route from the 555 building up to the center of Wayne. And as Neil said, the announcer will continually, between the participants in the parade, stress the fact that this is a outdoor event, yes, but you still, the other thing is, after a year of social distancing, whether you're in a Wegmans or an Acme or a Home Depot or a Wawa, people know the drill. And can there possibly be a couple of clowns? Yes. But I see the people of Radnor willing and able to properly social distance because they have been trained to do it. And, almost all the veterans will be in convertibles. And the parade groups, Valley Forge Military Academy is going to be in the parade this year.
So I'm just going to jump in, Marty, I think, and I need to ask at this point, are there any questions that the commissioners have? We've been going for a little while. We have a long agenda today. I don't want to interrupt you, but I also want to make sure that you have a chance to answer any commissioner questions that we have.
So there's what we were asked to do. So please, anyone.
So I just have one quick question, and I don't know if Chris or Bill, if one of you are more apt to answer it. So in the center of town, it definitely does get crowded. It's a very popular parade, and I think everybody is so looking forward to it. I'm just wondering, is there a way, like maybe blocking every other parking space or something, just, because people pull up, and I know everybody some people like sit in the back of their cars, like they sit on their cars and they like that area tends to get really congested. Is there just some way to kind of maybe keep it a little thinner and move people further down the parade route so everyone isn't kind of all clustered right in Wayne?
So, Commissioner, what would you think about making the North Wayne no parking at all and just have, we've closed that off for walking last summer, I think.
I'm thinking
That
on
what
like
you're
the sides
asking?
of, no, I'm thinking on the sides of Lancaster. So
Oh,
right
sorry.
in front of the stores, the parade goes right down and then it turns. Is it still going to turn and go down to the memorial? You're
Yes.
still going to go that way?
Yes.
Is there like, could we block off like every other parking space? I'm just thinking like it gets really tight in there and everybody pulls their cars in, and if you could only park in every other space, would that make it help space it out a little bit? I'm just,
And that is where the families usually are. And
yeah.
I did mention this to Mr. White or someone, east of there, where all these closed places are, Joe's Place, for example, and the cleaners and everything, they're all closed. And then the French restaurant is on the north side, and Rite Aid and everything. There's plenty of all-street parking, and usually that's very thin down there. Where, so if you do block off every other parking spot on the south side of Lancaster Pike in the center of Wayne, they will be forced to move down, to further east where all these empty parking lots are. You can
Or at
actually,
least then the spots would be open and people could stand like in a spot, as opposed to like a car being there. And then I know sometimes there's people on the sidewalk and sometimes there are people in front of the cars. Like it might, like you said, help spread it out a little. I don't know if that's, and I'm not thinking the entire way. I'm thinking maybe just, the stores, like where the old Gap was, like right there. And then the strip, maybe where Margaret Close is, like that strip there, where you guys usually also have the review stand, just to kind of help space it out a little bit. So there's not so many cars and so many people.
and
I don't
there
know.
will be more area east of there, like I said, it all the closed places, not only closed for good, but closed for Memorial Day.
Mhm.
And usually coming east to west, when you pass Aberdeen Avenue, it's usually hardly anybody there. So the people that usually park in the center of Wayne can park at the old French restaurant or Starbucks or something, park their cars and just walk up to the sidewalk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lisa, with the board's authorization, we'll work with the parade committee and see what we can incorporate there. That is definitely something we can work on.
That was my only thing.
Thank you, Lisa.
Because I'm sure there's gonna be a ton of people want to be there.
I'm 100% supportive of having the parade. We need to get back to normal in the state, in the country, and in Radnor. We need people. People need to get out and to participate. This honors our veterans, and it's a solemn and patriotic event, and it's very meaningful. And anyone who's concerned about COVID, if they're concerned, then they should take precautions that they feel are necessary. And if people don't want to come because they're concerned or they haven't been vaccinated or whatever it is, then they should do that. But it's an outdoor event. I see no problem with doing this. I'm 100% supportive. I'm not worried about a lot of signs or trying to keep people. Trust the people to have their own personal responsibility to take care of themselves, and they'll all be fine. So please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. Any other questions from commissioners? Thank you.
Hearing none, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. God bless. And I guess we'll be talking to Mr. White.
Moving on to item 3B, resolution number 2021-52, requesting Delaware County Council to retain zero waste experts to develop a countywide zero waste plan and to perform an audit of waste management in Delaware County, sent to us from the Environmental Action Committee. I will so move. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Ms. Reinhardt, I see that you are on with us today. If you could give us a brief preface on what you'd like us to do here.
Yes, so yes, I'm the new chair of the Environmental Advisory Council, and I would like the board to consider this resolution that I think I sent both to you via email and is a part of your packet. As I would like to, I was told I had 5 minutes, so I would like to give a little background as far as how this whole thing came about and what the essence of it is, in case someone didn't have a chance to look at it very carefully. So shortly after I became chair, all of the EACs in Delaware County were approached as to attend a meeting put on by a representative of concerned Chester City residents. And their concern is their very high rate of asthma and other health concerns, which there's been various documentations of this and has been attributed in part to the Covanta incinerator. But the meeting was also about an effort for the municipalities in Delaware County to work not just to take care of what possible problems might be generated by the Covanta incinerator, but also to work toward a zero waste management, which I would like to briefly explain. However, before I do that, I do want to address the comment by the representative of Covanta about our misinformation, in that I actually based some of this off of information from Covanta. Am I able to share screen? Can I do that?
So I don't, just give me one moment. Ian, if you're able to do that, okay, here we go.
Yes,
Yeah,
you should be able to
yes,
share
yeah.
screen right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. So this is, I hadn't planned to show this, but based on the comment that was made about misinformation. So this is Covanta responses to Chester environmental justice claims and comments on making a change podcast. So this was based on a Facebook podcast. Well, followed by bulleted responses from Covanta. So to my understanding, this is according to Covanta, and let me just scroll down, sorry for the scrolling. But these were the figures that were given, I'm assuming by Covanta, and these are, let me see if I can make this a little larger. No, yes. It was mentioned the particulate matter was less than 1% as compared to all the other sources. But what we have here is the particulate matter 10 and 2.5. And here it's 3%. And this one, which is, I think, the more dangerous, is 6%. But even 6% may not seem like much, but do notice that it takes the 6% piece of the pie, whereas all the other industrial processes and industrial fuel use, so take only 14%. So it's like a third of the other industrial processes. And compared to road and construction dust and so forth. So I just wanted to point out that what was given verbally does not jive with what Covanta has actually given on paper. Yeah, so that was the one piece that I wasn't prepared to show, but I have. So the other thing that I did want to share with you is that I won't bring it up on screen, but once again, the citizens of Chester have like 5 times higher asthma rates and a number of other health concerns. So that's why this was brought to us. Notice that our resolution has been modified from what we were originally asked to do. They originally were talking about shutting down Covanta. That's impractical at this point. That's not possible, and that's not what we're asking. We're asking that Delaware County, that you pass this resolution asking Delaware County to not approve the contract as stated, meaning that we need to provide a minimum amount of trash. And though it was presented by the Covanta representative that protects us, in fact, it gives us no incentive to cut back on our waste, which is what the zero waste management is about. So the two issues are the Covanta incinerator, causing problem for the Chester City residents, but also the fact that we as Americans and many parts of the developed world make too much waste. And the only way that something like this is going to get better is from the local level. So that we need to start working on cutting back our waste. So the resolution asks for you to have this zero waste management as a goal. All right, this is not saying we have to do such and such by this amount of time. It's to adopt this as our way of thinking and our goal. And so what does zero waste management mean? It means to head toward less and less waste. So to reduce the overall amount, to encourage reusing of products rather than either trashing them or even putting them in recycling. Reuse is much better. To revisit our recycling program, it turns out that single stream recycling is not the best way to go. To look at composting and at material recovery among others. And as far as implementing this, that needs a lot of work. We're not looking for the implementation, just the adoption of this as a goal. Implementation, I think, would have to start with a really concerted information campaign to residents. You have it nicely on the recycle site, to not put your recycling, for instance, in plastic bags. Yet I walk my dog and, every third person puts their recycling in a plastic bag. In fact, this clogs up the recycling equipment, and sometimes huge parts of the recycling ends up in the trash then because of not doing that properly. So there are so many little things that would cost the township absolutely nothing and perhaps could save money in the end, if only we didn't have to pay for a maximum amount of trash. By adopting, this resolution, I think it could be financially helpful. It would be helpful to the environment, and so that's primarily what I'm looking for at this point.
Okay. So I'll go first. Ms. Reinhardt and I spoke on this, so this will, I hope, not come as a surprise to her. I'm 100% in favor of all of the goals that she has just outlined. I have procedurally some concerns about the resolution that's in front of us. The first is I'm not sure that it's really within our scope of authority. Well, I don't know that's within our bailiwick really to tell the county what they should or should not be doing with respect to their trash programs. I'd love, however, to see the EAC reach out to the county and get more information for us, and also engage with Covanta and get more information from them for us as well. Certainly, we are in charge of our own programs. Recycling, I know Ms. Reinhardt has outlined a couple of different things that locally we are in charge of, and I'd like to see some changes to help people more appropriately deal with their trash and recycling, composting at home. That's not in the resolution that's in front of us right now. This appears to be directed entirely at Delaware County from my initial read of it. And also, I don't think that you're shaking your head, Ms. Reinhardt. Did I get that wrong?
No, well, part of it is directed to Delaware County, but the other, and that's the part that, so that we can eliminate that clause about providing a certain amount of trash. And that the second part of the resolution, though, is for our township to work towards zero waste management for our township. And if I didn't make that clear in the resolution, I apologize.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see Radnor Township requests that Delaware County Council retain zero waste experts to perform an audit. Radnor Township requests Delaware County Council to retain zero waste experts to help develop a county-wide zero waste plan. That Radnor Township requests that the new Delaware County Health Department, when established, assess the level of pollution.
That's true. Yeah, I was sort of looking for us to start the ball rolling, but I didn't make that clear. I'm sorry.
Got it. Yeah, I would be 100% in favor of a resolution that directed our staff to work towards zero waste. But before we did that, what I would like to see is engagement with our staff. So we're not presenting them with just a final goal, but working with them in order to demonstrate that there's a plan to get to that goal. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to tell Bill and Mike Simmons that what we need to do as a county is just nobody has any more trash. But I suspect that they're not going to be able to do that for me. We're going to kind of need a plan in between now and then.
Right.
So I've been talking for a while. Open up the floor to the other commissioners.
Hi, I'll jump in. Lisa, did you want to go? I saw your hand up. No, I would just say, I don't think there's anything in the resolution that I could individually oppose at this time, but I'm sort of thinking that along the lines of President Larkin, that I don't know that this resolution gets me where I would like to see us go. So I would very much encourage the EAC to get with the township staff. It sounds like there's an invitation to have a conversation with Covanta, and, you know, sort of a little bit more legwork before we just do a resolution about that may not get us to where we need to go. So I would be happy to have conversations with you to maybe refine it and bring it back in front of this board, because I think you were bringing up issues that we all, I think, care very deeply about. And I'm relatively new to the board, so I haven't, and due to a pandemic, I have not explored all of the recycling and waste management issues. So I think, you know, better educate ourselves, better educate the community, and perhaps reach these goals in some communications around how to properly manage our recycling. And then maybe there are discussions about whether or not we want to leave single stream and move on to others. So I sort of just feel like we all want to get there. I'm just not sure that this is the vehicle for me tonight. But I am very much eager to work on this.
So not to belabor, you know, I agree with Maura and Jack and Margaret. I want to thank you for your time. We had a very nice conversation, and you helped me better understand what your goals were. I know that we've talked about as a township, certainly the recycling being a cost that is, you know, going up astronomically. And that is something that we would like to revisit. I think we've talked about that. We talked about it last year. It was definitely pre-pandemic, I believe. So kind of getting back to that and having the EAC participate in that and help, I think would be great. You're right. People aren't recycling properly. I think we are in the process of, there's a flyer that's going to be coming out with shade tree information. I think on the flip side, there's supposed to be recycling information. I've had many people comment on that to me. So I do agree that there needs to be education. I would like to reconsider this again at another time, maybe a more, you know, as a tighter and more specific resolution around, you know, what we're doing as a township. And I might also encourage you, in addition, I think, like I said, the invitation from Covanta, talk to some of the other EACs, you know, in our vicinity. I know Newtown Township has a very active EAC. So perhaps kind of everyone gathering together and putting all, you know, everyone's head together. This is a Delaware County issue. So perhaps each individual municipality trying to take it on is not going to get us, again, move the needle. So that might be something that the EACs and the different townships could engage in. But I appreciate the work you've been doing, and I thank you for bringing this forward.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we did have a meeting with some of the EACs, and one, as far as I know, one municipality has adopted it and several are working on it. I think that the hope was that, you know, Delaware County would receive all of these resolutions from each municipality that contributes trash and would take it into consideration. I think that was the thinking behind this. Yeah.
Do we know if Delaware County, you know, where they are in the negotiation? I mean, if I kind of agree with Jack that for us to kind of.
So I understood it at first that there was a May 2021 deadline, but now upon further research, I find that they're beginning talks now, and that the actual contract won't be due till 2022. So they're only apparently beginning considering this. So I did misunderstand that, or maybe, yeah, to begin with.
May have changed.
Or they have changed. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
And I would suppose that the county is, if they are just beginning the process, would likely have some sort of community input opportunity. That would be maybe something to look into. Maybe they're receiving letters from EACs. Maybe, there is a way to engage them before decisions are made.
Okay. Yeah. So a letter from EAC would actually be good. Yeah. Thank you.
Jack, you're on mute, I think.
I move. Was this moved and seconded, Jack?
It was, sorry, I was on mute. I was asking if there's any staff comment. Seeing none, is there any public comment? I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails for lack of a majority. Ms. Reinhardt, thank you. I hope that we will see you again before too long to vote on this again.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank you very much for the effort I know that you put into talking to a number of us beforehand. You're an excellent advocate. I think it's just a matter of time before we get this right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 3C, ordinance number 2021-03, adoption, amending Article 19, density modification of the Radnor Township zoning ordinance by increasing the required open space for such uses and amending section 280-115 by establishing an open space requirement for other residential uses. I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Lisa, I know that this was an ordinance that you had initially worked on somewhat behind the scenes. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about it, or we could throw it to John Rice if you prefer?
I think John is fine.
Okay.
Okay. The proposed ordinance is pretty straightforward. It modifies the common open space criteria for a density modification development. The township has seen probably over the last 10 years efforts by developers to utilize open space for stormwater management. There's a prohibition currently in the ordinance regarding putting structures in open space, which I think is relatively clear. So what this would do is it would increase the tract area, first of all, to 25%. And it would exclude buffer yards, floodplain, or wetlands from that 25%. And it would permit some stormwater management, but a very small portion of the open space, 10%, to meet the stormwater management requirements. And there's a requirement that the open space be contiguous. I think we've seen plans in the past where essentially someone's lawn is offered up as open space. So it was that's the one part of this. The other part of this is to provide for an open space requirement, which doesn't currently exist in other types of residential uses, such as continuing care, senior living, memory care, et cetera. You have a list of uses in your ordinance, but there's no open space requirements currently. So it's increasing the density modification criteria and design, and also inserting an open space requirement for these other types of residential uses, which seems to be something that developers are turning to with an aging population. So that's it. It's been advertised twice. It was in the newspaper on April 12th and April 19th. It's been through the planning commission process. I know that Kevin Kachansky and I looked at it and tweaked it at some point, so it was clear, but it's up for board discussion and adoption tonight.
Commissioner
questions?
comment?
Yeah, I have a,
Oh, go ahead. No, go.
a quick question. Why is open space less for, I guess, a geriatric center as opposed to any other kind of institutional? It's
Sean?
15 verse 20, 15 verse 25.
Yeah, it's a judgment call in terms of, I think, the parcels that are available in the township. It's what was introduced in front of the board. Currently, there's 0. And I guess we can debate percentages, but there's got to be a reasonable opportunity to for those uses to develop. And currently, since there's 0, open space for those types of uses are generally not that important for the residents. There is some, it depends on the particular type of a development and the clientele, but just looking at other ordinances in other counties and other townships, it seemed like an appropriate number, but it's a judgment call.
Okay. So what you're saying, it's not appropriate for those clientele, it would be appropriate for items such as stormwater and quality of life and bird sanctuaries, et cetera. Currently, what is, you're telling me that PI is now is 0%? Am I correct, John?
Correct.
Okay, and we're bumping that to 15%.
Correct.
And then residential and commercial would be 25?
Well, the 25, remember that provision that we're modifying is in the density modification provisions of your zoning ordinance. So it's just someone that comes in with a density modification plan, not somebody that would build single family dwellings and do a conventional subdivision.
Okay.
That's it. Has nothing to do with commercial, that particular provision.
All right. I'll say I personally would like to see that 15% go up, but so if someone made a motion to raise that, I would support it. But overall, it looks it looks pretty good.
Commissioner Farhi, what number kind of feels right to you?
You could split the difference and go 20.
John, would we have to reintroduce it if we amended that?
Correct. You can't just change that number tonight and adopt it. So I think it's up for adoption. If you want to modify that, then I would start this process over again with a new ordinance. But you can't, once it's been through the planning commissions, county and township, once it's been advertised, other than very minor edits in a advertised zoning ordinance, and this is particular to zoning ordinances under the MPC, you have to start the whole process over again. So you're looking at 45 to 60 days with some change in that number.
All right.
I mean,
So all right, with that said, just keep it at 15, and then later on, if this gets revisited, something maybe we should take a look at.
So, and John, when would this go into, this would go into effect immediately? So I know it won't impact any current plans that might be already kind of in the process, but it would go into effect immediately, correct?
Yes, yes,
So any plans from this point on will have to adhere to this.
correct. Any subdivisions or land developments that would be filed. Once this is adopted.
So I just want to thank John and Kevin for your work on this to move this forward, and the rest of the board for their support of this. I think that with all the development that we know is coming forward in various areas of the township, that this is the absolute right time to do this.
Agreed. Is there any additional commissioner comment? Actually, I have one question for you, John. I have a concern because we recently denied a conditional use application on the grounds, among other things, of open space, that this is going to lead to an argument that we are amending our open space ordinance in order to, in some way, correct a deficit that existed before. And this will become evidence that the prior version of the open space ordinance that we had, or the prior rules that we had governing open space, do not apply in the way that we specified in response to conditional use. That is certainly not my intent. To the extent that we're making a record now, I want to make that clear, but I also want to ask you if you have any concerns about that.
No, I mean, that decision was based on the fact that the ordinance as it exists doesn't permit any structures in open space. So if you're going to use stormwater structures, the percentage is 0. This bumps it up to 10%.
Okay.
And adds the other design criteria. So, I'm not sure we want to discuss a potential land use appeal in this meeting, but I think that this is an increase, and it's more of an issue of design, and what is being proffered by developers and called open space. It's leftover tracts of ground. I mean, it's useless land that's being offered. So, this will require that they be contiguous. It'll eliminate really land that's, other than for natural resource uses, floodplains and wetlands and buffer yards, which are going to be required on top of it. So it's, this is an issue not with the most recent density modification, but there's been a half a dozen in the last 10 years, density modification plans, which, have not had real thoughtful design in terms of the land, or have not offered really useful open space. So Jack, I'm not concerned about that argument. It could be made, but that record is that record, going forward.
Okay, excellent. That's all I have. I didn't hear anything else. So is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0 with Commissioner Booker off the dais. Moving to item 3D. Motion to direct the township solicitor to enter an appearance on behalf of the township and oppose zoning hearing board appeal number 3096, 1106 County Line Road, zoned R5. The applicant is seeking relief to convert a single-family home into a 2-family dwelling. I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Who can tell us a little bit about this?
Commissioner, I can take this a little bit.
Excellent.
We have a little bit of history on this property dating back to 2012. The township at that point in time became aware of an illegal student rental as a result of a traffic accident actually that happened across township lines, but ultimately ended up impacting this property. So we became aware that the property was being illegally rented and rented to students, no less. So we started our enforcement actions with that property owner at that time, a different owner than currently owns it. As a result of complying with the enforcement notices, we entered into a settlement agreement on this property, which required, amongst other things, that the student rental be discontinued, any further rentals be subject to the rental housing provisions, and that is to remain as a single family home. The current owners, I think last fall, attempted to list this on the market. We became aware of it. It was listed as a 2-family unit instead of the single family that the township has records of, at which point we brought to their attention that there were some issues with that. It took some time for the owner, who I believe is Dr. Lau, to put together the zoning hearing board application to try to get this unit converted to a 2-family unit versus the single family that is on township records.
Okay. Kevin, do you know what the hardship that's alleged is before the zoning hearing board?
I believe that they are referencing some previous conversions of the unit and maybe some county tax records. And I think that there's 2 utility hookups, but I would defer to the owner on that.
Okay, I'm not really sure how that constitutes a hardship, but okay, got it. Is there any other commissioner comment?
Yes, this is a house in my ward, and it is opposed by most of the neighbors that have spoken to me on this issue. We see no reason to, we don't want to see a single family home turned into a multifamily or 2-family due to the makeup of the neighborhood and some other issues that we have with non-single family housing in the very direct area. So I would seek to ask the solicitor to go and oppose this application, this appeal.
I have a couple of questions. So what's the parking situation?
Okay.
Is there parking in front?
There's no parking. It's
Okay.
on County Line Road, so there's no parking in front. The property has parking.
How
Driveway.
much parking? How much parking? How many spots?
Commissioner, I don't know. I believe there's a detached accessory structure, but I couldn't tell you for sure the amount of parking spaces that you could fit on the property.
Okay, because that's my issue. I mean, I understand that you're making it single to multi. If there's enough room for 4 spots, then I don't necessarily know that we should oppose it. But if it's 2 spots for 2 different dwellings, that's going to be too much. So you don't have that at all. 3 cars, 2 cars. No.
I mean, you can see a driveway, and I can't tell how many cars you could get in there.
Okay.
Any other commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? Mr. Lau? Mr. Lau?
Jack, how are you?
Yep, we can hear you.
Good. I was just kind of listening in on comments discussion, which is very insightful for me and my husband. And to answer Sean's question in terms of the parking situation, there's a long driveway and there's a 2 detached car garage next to it. There's another spot. So I welcome you guys to swing by, drive by, but in terms of the parking situation, you can easily park between 4 cars on the property. So I hope I address some of the questions that you have. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor of directing the solicitor to enter an appearance on behalf of the township to oppose the zoning hearing board appeal number 3096. All in favor? Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0 with Commissioner Booker off the dais. Moving to item 3E, resolution number 2021-49, engagement of PFM to provide financial consulting services for the proposed financing of stormwater projects. I will so move. Is there a second? Okay. Bob Tate, is that you?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. This resolution is to engage PFM, Public Financial Management, for this particular transaction for financing the stormwater projects. PFM is the appointed financial advisor for the township, but as customary, we come before the board for specific approval as the transactions generally exceed the $7,500 threshold. And as in the past, they've guided us and provided their expertise to ensure we get the best result and financial structure for the borrowing that we anticipate.
Okay. Is there any commissioner comment? Is there any public comment? All in favor? Oh, here we see one. Ms. Azarano, you are up.
So I just have a quick question, and I live on 243 Willow Avenue in Wayne, so I am certainly extremely familiar with stormwater management. I've been on the website and there's a committee that's listed on the website, and yet there's one name and multiple vacancies. So I'm just curious about the Stormwater Management Committee and how that might play into something like this and the discussion about stormwater projects.
So I'm going to give you the short answer now, which is that the Stormwater Management Committee has not had a quorum for years now. And the board really has taken control of stormwater projects. I can tell you that we have been making good headway on those, and I think that we've actually been getting to a good place with them. Although I recognize that it takes time and more time than anybody who's affected by stormwater wants. For the longer answer, of course, any other commissioner is free to weigh in since I've already stuck my oar in, but if you want to contact me offline, I'd be happy to talk to you a little bit more about it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0 with Commissioner Booker off the dais. Moving on to item 3F, resolution number 2021-50, engaging Cozen O'Connor for legal services for the proposed financing of stormwater projects. Bob, lead us in. Oh, sorry, I would so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now Bob, lead us in. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Similarly to the last resolution, Cozen is the appointed bond counsel for the township and has guided us for many years in our financing transactions and keeping us in compliance with all federal and state laws. And again, although appointed as general bond counsel, we do come before the board for specific approval for these transactions. And so for the same stormwater financing transactions, Cozen are requesting their engagement to guide us through the process.
Okay, is there any commissioner comment? Any staff comment?
Yeah, just real quick, if the board would like, we can do a quick refresh on the projects that are currently identified and talk about the process a little bit. I know we had a couple special meetings where we went into quite a bit of detail. So if everyone's up to speed, then we're good. I just wanted to roll that offer out there in case you wanted to.
Thank you.
I would accept that offer.
Is there any public comment?
Wait, are we gonna do the?
Wait, are we gonna get
are we
the,
gonna- Yeah,
the
get that
summary?
information.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was an offer for a private information. Yeah, then go ahead.
oh no, I would like it to be, yeah, a quick summary to be presented to the public would be, and myself would be very
Oh,
helpful. Thank you.
Please. Yes, then. Sorry.
All right. Well, I will tee this off, and this is, I've learned from Steve on the success of screen sharing, so let me give this a shot. Let's see. It is not on my list of things. There it is. All right, so hopefully everyone can see the spreadsheet.
Yes, if you could make it just a little bigger.
Happy to. So let me just, this is the pro forma operating statement that we had stepped through, where it identifies the annual revenue that we receive from the current stormwater fee, which is about 1.1 million per year. The reason why year one is shown with a $500,000 more is because of the state grant that we were fortunate to receive that will help offset a significant portion of the emergency work happening on Robin Hood Road that the board approved last fall. Then we incorporated the cost of, well, two things. First of all, we've got two buckets of project funding. We have cash projects, which are less than $500,000 per project. Well, an allocation of $500,000 per year to do as many small projects as can fit within that amount. So we've identified some smaller projects immediately on this list, some of which have already received board approval to proceed in various stages. And then in future years where we don't have the specific projects identified, we just allocated that portion of cash towards those. Because if you'll recall the larger stormwater project list, we had dozens of these types of projects that ultimately the board will have the opportunity to prioritize and fund on an ongoing basis. Where the two pieces of legislation tonight come into play is for receiving the financing necessary to move forward on the larger projects that we stepped through that are identified here. The South Wayne parking lot, West Wayne Preserve, Mayland Road Culvert, Gulf Creek Flood Project, AKA the North Wayne Floodplain Creation Project, which is a mouthful. And then the North Wayne Municipal Parking Lot, Highview Outfall. Those are the projects that were immediately identified. And if you'll recall, those were selected because prior boards had authorized the township to proceed with some design costs. So those are further ahead in the game, so to speak, some of which, and I'll let Steve go into the details, a couple of which are ready to go more immediately. Either then they're not moving forward either solely because of funding, which again, these two pieces of legislation and the action that the board's approving tonight will satisfy or solve, or we're waiting on permitting, as in the case of the West Wayne Preserve, where it's just held up at the state. So that's why these projects were identified. We understand that, you know, this is a bit of a moving target, so to speak. The nice thing about what we've discussed is that both the level of funding and the projects that we ultimately elect to move on is flexible. So we'll have an amount of dollars available to us. The board can increase that if you'd like, if we wanted to add projects to it. It's just a matter of the board voting on it. So There are definitely other projects in the works. And there will always be projects in the works. But what the goal of this step that we're taking tonight is to move forward with some of the projects that we've prioritized in years past. And again, they were just held up because of lack of funding. So this will allow us to at least start moving forward on some projects. So that is the 5-minute explanation or update on where we're at between Steve, Bob, and I. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Steve, what's the next conversation with DEP on the West Wayne Preserve?
Commissioner, we actually just spoke on that today. So basically, the West Wayne Preserve and Friends of the Radnor Trail Stormwater Management Project, Flood Reduction Project is ready to go, except for our DEP permitting. So we have at least 2 more meetings with DEP. My thought is they're usually scheduled 3 to 4 to 5 weeks out. So I think we have a couple more months of meetings with DEP in determining the process they want us to use for the contaminated soil there. Once that's done, that project can go out to bid. I don't want to speak for DEP. It's been a long process, and I see a few more months in it. As the manager had noted, the South Wayne parking lot and South Wayne Avenue stormwater and stormwater management project, that is the closest and just about ready to go. So when funding, if funding is available, that can go. The Malin Road culvert, that too is designed, and there was no funding for it earlier. We have a very specific timeline to work within the PICO guidelines because of a gas line relocation. So if this gets funded, that would go in 2022. And as the manager also noted, there are some new projects coming up, some infrastructure projects that we'll be bringing to the board. And I think what Bill was speaking about with the flexibility. So when the time comes, we can bring you the existing list plus other projects, and it's at the board's discretion to either increase funding or we can mix and match these projects to fit into the funding with the board's approval on the final projects.
Yeah, and it's Steve, if I could, I'm not sure I was clear enough. So the way the reason why that's going to work the way that we're spelling out is we're only going to draw down from the bank the amounts necessary to do the projects that the board approved. So that's a little different than our traditional bond funding where we borrow the full amount up front and then do the project subsequently, where, past boards have wanted to identify the projects at the time of borrowing so that the money was clearly identified and allocated to those projects. This is working a little different in that we'll only draw down on the projects as they're approved by the board.
Just for a quick clarification, the spreadsheet that you just showed, we are sitting smack dab in the middle of year 1, right? Year 1 is this current fiscal year or calendar year?
Well, yeah, so it would be roughly 2021. At one point we had the actual years listed there, but we're a couple months behind. So to try to clear that up or eliminate any confusion or false expectations, we just identified year 1. So if the board moves forward with engaging the team here tonight and we get going on borrowing the money, 2021 will in essence be year 1.
Got it. Thank you.
2021 will be year 1. Sorry, I'm a year off.
And is it fair to say that currently between what we have going on now planned for and then what we want to accomplish moving forward is going to impact, I think, every single ward in the township eventually?
Well, just looking at the project list, we are touching a lot of different areas. I'll let, I don't know if Steve, if you got that
Sure.
specific information.
So I hate to say this, I'm not completely familiar with what area is what commissioners' wards, because I look at these projects really based on need. But I can tell you, the Malin Road project, Culver project, I believe that's in your ward, Commissioner Borowski. We have the South Wayne municipal lot. That might be Commissioner Abel's ward. We
I
have,
think that was Ward 3.
is that former Commissioner Enderle's ward. In Commissioner Abel's ward, I know we have the West Wayne Preserve. There's multiple projects in Commissioner Larkin's area in his ward. We have a feasibility study project coming forth in the next meeting or two. That's actually in Garrett Hill, which is Commissioner Farhi's ward, which is unusual. We haven't had a lot there other than when we built the park, we did some stormwater management. I'll have to go through the list. We have one in Commissioner Booker's ward. So I think in Commissioner Mulroney's ward, I'm not sure, we very well may, but I think we're pretty much across the board. And again, I don't look at these when folks come to us with issues. Obviously, we make the ward commissioner aware when it gets to a certain, magnitude. But from my standpoint, from staff standpoint, we don't break it down per ward. It's really, is it an infrastructure project or is it a stormwater management project? That's really how it comes down. And a culvert would fall under infrastructure. So we have one in Beaupre. A design proposal will be coming to you, and that may be your ward, Commissioner Borowski, I believe. So we're all across there. I'll see if there's one in Commissioner Mulroney's ward. I'm not quite sure on the final limit on that.
Yeah, I mean, just anecdotally, there are, and we know that there are issues throughout town. Some areas are harder hit than others, and I think a couple of those were addressed here on the shorter term. But I think it's pretty fair to say that over the life of this program, we're going to be touching every corner of Radnor, trying to make improvements.
And I think in the stormwater fee ordinance and resolutions that followed, it's noted that really stormwater projects, although they may affect a very specific group of the population from the flooding standpoint, it actually affects many of our residents from a motorist standpoint, because our residents do, they don't just drive in their neighborhood, right? They go through the township and other townships. So one of the things the stormwater fee was based on the fact that flooding can affect many residents, although they don't live there, right? Obviously, the hardest hit are the folks who are at ground zero, but closed roads or roads that are hard to pass or culverts that are closed affect a lot of folks.
Well, I think that South Wayne parking lot project, if that's going to alleviate the flooding in front of the firehouse and the school administration building right by the middle school, that's certainly very important money well spent, I think.
So that will reduce the probability of flooding in the 10-year 1-hour event. Just thought I'd clarify that. Will not alleviate all flooding at that location.
Well,
Sorry, I
it's
had
going
get
to
that in
improve
there.
it. And
Yes,
it's going to
ma'am.
utilize the system that's under the field, correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Finally.
Yes, it will be fully utilized. That is truly money in the bank in that we have stormwater capacity in that system that's not being used.
Exactly. And that was money invested by residents years and years ago that we should be using. So, excellent.
Okay. Is there any additional commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Abel abstaining. Moving to item 3G, ordinance number 2021-04, introduction. amending the Radnor Township Code of Ordinances, Chapter 62, Pensions and Annuities, Article 2, Police Plan, Section 18, Retirement Benefits by adding Subpart L to Section 18, which subpart relates to the Deferred Retirement Option Plan effective as of January 1, 2020, and changing the lettering of the previously existing Subpart L from L to M. I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
John, is this you?
Well, either me or Bob Tate, but I mean, basically what this is implementing the drop program, which has already been approved in the labor agreement, I think a year ago or less than a year ago. And this is just, it's already in effect. This is just amending your pension ordinance to put it at the appropriate spot in there. So it's been advertised for public hearing. And I don't know, Bob may have some additional commentary on it, but that's all this is. This is not anything new. This has already been agreed to in the collective bargaining agreement.
That's correct. It's really just a matter of housekeeping for updating the pension ordinance to reflect the provisions of the contract extension, which was approved by the board in January of 2020 between the township and the FOP.
Is there any commissioner comment?
I voted against the drop previously, and I'm still opposed to it. And with the number of people in the police forces all across the country who are seeking other employment and who feel that they are less than appreciated by much of the public, I think this is going to hurt us even more. So I'm still opposed to the drop, and I'm opposed to this this housekeeping, this codification of it.
I'll just say this: if this is housekeeping, this should be on consent, and $133,000 contract should be voted upon to the board. So I'll vote for this. Just my opinion, if we're talking about housekeeping.
Okay, we vote on the stuff on consent and the stuff on the regular agenda, and anybody can pull anything off consent that they want to, but
If this is housekeeping, then it should be on consent. Thank you.
okay. Is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Hey,
Motion passes 5-1. Moving on to item 4, reports of standing committees. Do we have any reports?
I'll just note that the Shade Tree Committee, during, I guess last week, the Shade Tree was able to secure 15 donated trees from the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. And those trees were planted across the township, I think in Odorizio Park. I think there were some planted in Commissioner Farhi's ward. There were some planted at Sawmill Park and some other places around the township. So I just wanted to thank and commend Shade Tree for their work in securing more trees and free trees for the township.
Great. Moving on to new business, discussion of the deputy treasurer position. Moira, this is you, I think.
Yes, thank you. It had, so this is just something I would like to ask the solicitor to help us understand the process of appointing a deputy tax collector. It was brought to my attention that there is a person who has used that as a title, Radnor's deputy tax collector, and my cursory review of the law leads me to believe that we did not follow any proper processes. So I'm asking for just some information about how that works. I see Treasurer Gartland is here as well. So whether it's the solicitor or you, I would very much appreciate understanding how is a person deputized. And what it's my reading of it is that should have come before the Board of Commissioners. So I guess that's I'll tee it up. Happy to
So,
explain further.
sure. So that is probably an error by the person who would need to correct that. There is no deputy treasurer. There is a deputy tax collector.
Yeah, it was deputy tax collector, and it's in the bio of somebody running for
So the
treasurer.
tax collector is appointed by me, and that's a state requirement. And we've always had a deputy, and it was Sarah Armstrong. And it is now Linda Dowd. And that
So
is
my
a
reading
state
of,
requirement.
sure, but my reading of the local tax collection law says that anybody appointed deputy needs to be approved by the taxing districts, which would be
Well,
Radnor School District and the county. So
right.
I just think that there needed to be some
That's been
sort of,
done.
sorry,
That's been completed.
it did not come to the Board of Commissioners.
It doesn't have to. There's no point on this where it goes to the Board of Commissioner.
So I'm asking the solicitor to perhaps provide a memo to clear this up, because my reading is different than yours.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that we're going to resolve this now. Why don't we just ask John if he could let us know his thoughts, and we can come back to this at the next meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Wait, hold on. So what's the concern, Moira? What's the issue that we have?
So the issue is that there is a person who has publicly announced themselves as Radnor's deputy tax collector in written materials. I saw it. I didn't know that we had one. And in my cursory review of the law, it seems that the treasurer has the right to deputize, but that the process perhaps was not public. So I don't know who this person is. The electors did not put this person in office, and I don't have any evidence that there was any background check or, looking into whether they had the ability or the, anyway, I just think that there should be a process if there isn't. So I'd love to hear what is in place so that we can determine that it's the appropriate way to get the taxing district approval for the deputy.
Is there something that you've heard of that concerns you about this person?
No.
Is there somebody else that you would like to have on there? Is that?
No.
Rich, I don't think that the question is whether we're specifically concerned about any particular person. I know that I, based on what Moira has just said, would certainly be concerned if it is correct that there is a person who's been appointed and doesn't have the board's
It doesn't require the
approval.
board.
I understand you said that, but
And you are reading it incorrectly. If you can't read the statute, it says the township treasurer appoints a deputy.
so I'm not reading it at all. I'm just asking for a memo along with Moira right now. But what I'm saying is that the
Well,
concern is that if there's a person who is been appointed, does that person have a bond? Is that person being paid
That
by the township?
Is bonded, yes.
Okay,
And they've
well,
gone through and filed with the ethics. So it is a person who has great character and has finance and CPA work experience. So there's plenty of eminently qualified.
so that's great, but that's not really any of the concerns that I've just raised.
No,
And I don't think it's a
you would have to
concern
read the
that,
law.
John, again, I haven't read anything here. I'm just trying to reiterate some of the issues that have been raised thus far. I think that's
so,
why we've asked John for a memo.
well, hold on. So I think that if the board wants to have John issue a memo, we should get consensus, not you just saying that. You can't unilaterally ask John for a memo without consensus. Am I correct?
Well,
the board should make a motion,
The
authorize.
board should make a motion, correct?
Right,
You can't
authorize.
unilaterally Jack, you cannot unilaterally tell John Rice to make a memo. There needs to be a vote.
I haven't yet, Sean.
Well, you should know your
I'm just
words. You were
asking.
saying no before you said you'd have John Rice make a memo.
Yeah, I'm thinking we should have John
Your-
Rice
your
make a memo.
Words count, Jack.
Okay, is there any additional commissioner comment on this?
Well, then I would, if that's the procedure, I would like to make the motion to learn more about the deputization of the township tax collector.
I'll second that. Is there any commissioner comment?
Sure. I think that we're making this a political issue in the middle of an election year. That's number one. Number two is Ms. Dowd's qualifications are concerned. Were never really an issue until now. So I think this is going to be a waste of money. There'll be a new election in a couple months, and then you can figure it out from there.
So I'm
John,
just
is
gonna
this
respond to
covered by
that I'm trying very much not to politicize this. It was raised because I read it and I had never heard of a deputy tax collector. So I did a cursory research. It's not my area of legal expertise. And my reading of the law is that it should have been approved by the Board of Commissioners, the taxing district. I'm seeing the treasurer shaking her head. So that's actually what I would like to clear up. And so perhaps it's something that the
Let me
treasurer
ask
could submit to us. I mean, I don't need a legal memo. I just want.
No,
I
that's
want
fine.
to-
Catherine, do you have that statute in front of you that you can put up on the screen?
It's really lengthy, but the section itself, I don't know that I can block and copy it and put it. I can quickly read it. When the township treasurer is unable to perform the duties of his office and fails or refuses to appoint a deputy, the Court of Common Pleas on petition of the township commissioner shall appoint a deputy treasurer to serve until the treasurer is again able to perform the duties of his office.
I think there's another section about directly to deputizing a tax collector. Before the refusal to do so, there's the authority to do so.
I don't see it.
So
You know,
rather,
yeah, hold on, I'm sorry, Commissioner Barrasso, let me just say this. So we don't deputize
No.
Bob Tate when Bill White isn't around. Bob Tate's the acting manager. I don't,
Their staff.
yeah, their staff. Catherine, do you get paid?
Yes, there's a salary,
Thanks.
but this is an elected position and the treasurer of the treasurer.
Okay, so I've just called up the statute. I see it as section 5511-22, A sub 1. A tax collector may, with the approval of a taxing district and his surety, deputize in writing one or more deputy tax collectors who, when so deputized, shall be authorized to receive and collect any or all of the taxes in like manner and with like authorities the tax collector appointing them. Any tax collector appointing any deputy collector shall be responsible for and account to the taxing district for all taxes received or collected by his deputy. I got to say, I read that the same way Moira does. A tax collector may, with the approval of a taxing district and his surety, deputize in writing. I don't understand how that doesn't go to the board. Also, the school board and the county.
Well, it goes like the form requires to the township manager, the county, the school board, and the surety company. It doesn't have the board anywhere on this form.
It's not a question of the form.
It doesn't have it. This is a state form.
So this is part of what I'm trying to get into is that I don't think that we're following the proper procedures under the law. So whether the form says so or not, I'm not seeing that we're following the way the law is written on, plainly. So if the form's wrong or if our procedures are out of whack, I would just like to correct it and have a much more transparent conversation about who is in your stead when you're not able to perform your duties.
John, it sounds like you want to weigh in.
Yeah, let me just, I actually was involved in a fairly significant tax collector's case that went up out of Bucks County involving 2 school districts to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So you're talking about the local tax collection law, the LTCL. And what Jack read is my understanding of how you appoint a deputy. And it's good to have a deputy. You need a deputy because we've been involved in some cases where the borough tax collector died and there was no deputy, or was so ill she couldn't perform the job. So that's a whole different issue. But the statute contemplates that the tax collector or the treasurer, they're interchangeable terms, appoints a deputy, for that reason. And that statute basically says that can be done. It's got to be approved by the taxing entities, which is the township, the school district, and the county, and the surety. So the first call I'm going to make tomorrow morning is to Pat Larkin and ask him whether there's ever been an approval of a deputy tax collector out of Radnor Township, because I think there is a form that gets filled out, but it gets filled out by the 3 taxing entities, and the surety signs it. I've seen the form. So I think with that, I mean, Pat's going to have that. If that hasn't been done, then that's a defect, in terms of any appointment, but I don't know that. So I talked to him and the school district and the county and find out whether there's been any kind of an appointment. I hear Catherine saying that she appointed somebody.
Right.
But, that's not the end of it. And that's been the law for a long time.
Right.
That
But
you
that's
have to,
the form.
you have to have that done. I have the form.
Yeah.
I know exactly what it says. There's a,
Right, but the form's not the law and the form may be wrong, or our procedures may need to be updated to be able to reconcile the form with the law. So I'm not trying to turn this into, an investigation into who you deputize, other than that I believe that with the commitment to transparency in our fiscal management in this township, it would be prudent for us to follow the tax collector law when it comes to deputizing, so that you have approval from all of the taxing entities. And I'm not sure that just because the form says that the manager signs it does not alleviate us from being the deciders, or, one of 3 approvers along with the surety. So I think we just don't have our processes in place. And I would just like to make sure that we do, so that it is transparent and following the letter of the law.
I guess I understand that point. My question is, what is the harm? I don't see any harm. There needs to be a deputy. If Catherine can't collect the tax, she's approved someone to work in her stead. She's filled out the form. I don't see any harm. It's no harm, no foul. I don't see any harm here.
The harm is if we get.
So I
sued
think the
and this
harm
person
is,
isn't
sorry, go ahead, Jack.
The harm is if we get sued and this person isn't bonded or hasn't been appropriately appointed, then we're not going to have coverage.
I see the harm a little bit broader than that, which is, I'm hearing tonight that the person who's been deputized is an excellent deputy. And I'm taking that as, I have no reason to question that, is my point. But what if they weren't? What if there wasn't the appropriate vetting of a person's background? If there's no, the number of things that this board must approve before anybody on staff can do is, onerous. We're on meetings very late at night, and the idea that somebody who is managing money that comes from residents, real estate transfer, collaborating with our finance department, who has not been either vetted by the electorate as Treasurer Gartland, or, that we have assurances in front of us that it has been done appropriately otherwise, with the letter of the law, regardless of the form. That's the harm that I see. It's not tonight's harm, and I am making no disparaging commentary about our current treasurer or even the person they chose for deputy. I'm simply asking that when we are looking at something that is as important as the finances of the township and, monies of our residents, that we are extra careful, that we are making sure that we are doing it exactly as the law intended.
I don't think we ever approved Sarah Armstrong in the past.
Well, I think that was a mistake.
I don't think that makes it better.
It's not required.
It's just our,
State form. So it's
our
not,
practice is
But
not.
forms aren't the law. The law is the law. The form can
this
be
is
wrong.
based on law.
Right, but it's
It
not the
doesn't-
law.
So we could argue law. I mean, we have our solicitor, I think to have, it seems like he can easily clear this up. And if we do need to have, relook at the process or, better set out the process moving forward, it doesn't hurt. And all we're asking is for the solicitor to look into it and make sure that everybody is doing what needs to be done according to the law. I have no problem with that. So I didn't know we had a deputy tax collector either. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I think it's fine.
Pardon me, Commissioner Borowski. So why don't we just appoint her right now, tonight, and then it's done. Then we don't need to do any of this instead of wasting our time talking about it. No one seems to have a qualm with her work, and she's done well, and we have a quorum here. I'm certainly in favor of it, so I'll go make that motion now.
Second.
That we appoint Miss Dowd as the deputy tax collector, and then we can end this.
Well, just 1 second. We didn't have this.
Sure.
We didn't have a vote as an agenda item, so I'm not sure we should be voting. I don't know the person's bio, so I would have I'm voting on somebody that I haven't looked into.
I'm with you, Commissioner Abel. I literally saw this in writing and I don't know anything further than that. So I would be, if we are going to be the approving body, it has to be on the agenda, the person brought before us, or I'm asking to understand the process
Sure.
instead of that. So
John,
Well,
let me
okay.
ask.
I would be against a vote on it tonight in general,
Okay,
not just about
that's
the person,
okay.
but
Sure,
as a vote.
That's fine.
But
Then
it was
then you
moved,
could,
it was
hold on,
moved and
then you
seconded.
can put it on the agenda, but she's been working, hold on. Catherine, how long has she been in this role? 3.5 years?
Oh, no, Sarah was for 3 and a few months. Sarah,
Okay, and then how long has Ms. Dowd been?
just a few months, just a
few
month.
months.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
then,
They're
fine,
very
then,
limited due to COVID, so it's been remote and,
all
you
right,
know.
then that should go on the agenda next, at the next meeting. I don't know, because I
Well,
think she'll wind up getting approved, so.
Well, point of order, it was moved and seconded right now.
Yeah, I mean, we can vote
Fine.
on that. That's fine.
Okay, I mean.
John, if you drafted a memo for us, would it say anything other than what you told us just now?
Well, I would tell you what's happened. If Sarah Armstrong's been the deputy, then there ought to be documentation of that. So I would want that, from either the township or Pat Larkin, I'm guessing is probably going to have that. So, but the basic appointment process, it's by the taxing entity. It's not by the township manager. It's not by the business manager. It's the taxing entity. So the 3 taxing entities, county, school district, and the township have to do it. And the surety has to sign off. And I mean, the obvious reason for the surety to sign off is that the person would have access to township tax dollars and finances. So, I mean, the stories are legion of people that dip into township tax dollars all over, the state of Pennsylvania. So, and this has nothing to do, I don't know the individual, but that's the reason for the surety. And I don't know whether they do a background check. I'll find out when I talk to him tomorrow, but I'm sure he's familiar with it. But that'll be other than, what has happened and whether there's been any documentation of the new person. That's going to be my opinion. I'm very familiar with the local tax collection law and the requirements for deputies, and it applies to the township.
So I will move to table the motion that has just been made because I feel like, I know Miss Dowd. She is a neighbor. I've known her for many, many years. I think we're doing her a disservice in this moment. So I think that we should let John Rice do what he needs to do and figure out the process. And then, as we said before, put it on for the next agenda and allow her also to be here. She's not even here. I don't think that this is a fair process.
Yeah, I'll second that. All in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5 to 1.
Nay.
Okay. Moving to West Wayne Avenue Cemetery. That is
Well,
Beg
hold
pardon?
on.
Now the original motion.
Oh,
The original
sorry.
motion is to authorize the solicitor and staff to put together some information on this and get it back to the board.
I'm sorry, I understood that that was what we were tabling. Lisa, what did?
Yeah,
No.
we tabled the vote
No,
on the
tabled my-
particular person.
You tabled my,
Yeah, I tabled
Okay.
Sean's.
Sean's motion for appointment. You
that's
take-
fine. So we
I'm
can just put
then-
it on next agenda. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
then going to move to table the remaining issue and we can deal with both of them at the same time. I would suggest that I'd like to find out about the bond issue before we move further, just to see whether there is actually a bond issue there. And then John can give us a rundown and we could either ask for further information from him at that time or not. Is there a second?
I guess I'm not quite sure can you repeat what your motion is?
Sure. With respect to the motion to request the solicitor to prepare a memo for us on this issue, John has already told us what his take is on it. I think we know what his position is, and it's not the same as Ms. Cartland's.
Yeah, it is.
John, is your position the same as Ms. Cartland's?
I'm not sure what her position is. I want to talk to her probably later this week if at all possible. So
Okay.
but I don't think.
Okay, well then, regardless, I continue to think you guys are not on the same page. You can certainly have a conversation, but I don't think that your memo is really going to change the position that you've outlined for us yet. But I would like to see the bond issue before we take any further steps with this resolved. Either we're going to find out that there is a bond or there isn't. That would be material to my decision to go forward. And as a result, I'm going to propose tabling the motion to have the solicitor prepare a memo. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the motion to table, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion fails for lack of majority. Okay, any additional commissioner comment?
So what's the process here? We're gonna have a memo and then we can look at the memo and Ms. Dow can come to the next meeting and we can appoint.
I guess now I would just say it might be a two-step process. If there's, I guess, communication about what the result of the memo is before we decide we're bringing somebody to a point. I wouldn't want to have her come twice if it's not getting there. So I don't know how to bridge those two, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I would think that we can read the memo and appoint, and if there's adequate information, we can make that vote. If not, we can table it. But I think
Okay.
the sooner, based on what John said, God forbid there's an emergency. I'm sure, Catherine, you're very healthy, but God forbid there's an emergency, we should have that deputy lined up. So how I would like to see it play out would be John types a memo, it goes in the packet, we review it, and then we vote. I don't know if that's a voting issue or not, and then we can appoint at the next meeting.
Okay. Works for me.
Yeah. Okay. Any additional commissioner comment? Any public comment? I'm assuming, well, I should have asked, is there any staff comment? Hearing none, I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 5 to 1. Moving to item 5B, West Wayne Avenue Cemetery discussion. Commissioner Abel.
Yep, thank you, President Larkin. So for those of you who know, we have a cemetery on West Wayne Avenue. It's the First Baptist Cemetery. It, I assume at some point was part of a church. I don't believe that church exists anymore. So we have a cemetery, an unkept cemetery that the township takes care of. I've been speaking with some organizations and groups in the township who seem to support doing volunteer projects there. However, in speaking with the manager and the solicitor, I believe they'd be more comfortable if there was work going on in the cemetery, if the township took ownership of the area. So, the discussion tonight is, is there consensus to, or is there the will of the board to ask the solicitor to draft a petition, which will need to be signed before the township can take ownership?
So are you talking about taking it by eminent domain?
No, Jack, there's a provision in state law for what I call orphan cemeteries. Cemeteries such as this one, and I'm familiar with this. I did some digging 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Oh, awful pun, John.
Did some digging, not into the ground, but into the background. And it is a Baptist church that owned it. And the last trustee was, I think, Wachovia Bank before it became Wells Fargo Bank. And the trail stopped there. So it's an orphan cemetery, and the way the orphan cemeteries are handled, if the municipality wants to take ownership of it and be responsible for it, is they can do it voluntarily, or it can be done involuntarily by a petition signed by, I think there's 20 residents that would have to sign a petition. It would go to Delaware County Court of Common Pleas. There'd be a hearing. The court would enter an order. And I think if the township's going to step into this, you want the protection of a court order spelling out what your responsibilities are, liabilities, that kind of thing. So the initial step, which Commissioner Abel's talking about, is a petition. It's really a petition by residents. So Commissioner Abel, you'll need to recruit, I believe it's 20 or 25 residents to sign that petition.
Correct. Yep.
And then it gets filed. But I mean, I've been involved in a couple of these that are just, you see these cemeteries on the side of the road. No one's cared for them. And local municipality, if it's interested, can take them over, but not by eminent domain. This would be by a petition and then a court order, a court decree.
And what does it look like for the township to own? I'm assuming then I guess let me ask a couple of questions. This is not an active cemetery, meaning there are no empty plots that are being held for somebody who's already paid for them. I mean, do we have to look into that?
No, I don't think there's any records of that. There may be some empty slots. I mean, you could conceivably, if the township wants to get into that part of the business or engage somebody to do that, there's probably places to still inter people in that cemetery. And I'm thinking of one that I'm familiar with in Bucks County, where small, much smaller than this, but the township has had people interred in it since they took it over. It's a maintenance issue. It's mowing, it's headstones, maybe straightening them up. I don't know whether there's there may be a list of people buried in there somewhere in the township's archives. But it's a maintenance issue for the township to take it over.
How big is it? How big is is it an acre, 2 acre? Like I'm not even aware of it. How big is it? When we talk a maintenance issue, how big is it?
I've been there, but it's been 5 or 6 years, and I walked it with Don Curley And I'm thinking it's a half acre. There's some very large mature trees when I was there. You know, it was overgrown, so it was difficult to see what all was in the ground. But I'm thinking, Lisa, it's about a half acre, more or less.
And
And then-
currently it's cared for by the neighbors? Jake, who takes care of it? Nobody?
No, the township's been, we've contracted with a company to go and do the mowing. So just a couple times a year, we'll go out and do the mowing, and we've been doing that, it looks like, since 2018-ish. Or at least that's the first time I'm able to see the expenses show up on our system. We may go back further than that, and they just may not be in the system, but, or I'm not looking right, but we've been doing it for the last couple of years.
Can I ask a question? What's the upside to owning a cemetery? I mean, if a headstone falls, we have to try to replace it. We have to try to find lost plots, deal with maybe family members who want to know where their loved one is buried. What's the, I mean, we have the liability. That's fine. I guess we can't get rid of that. I don't know, and I'm asking you, Commissioner Abel, what's the upside if we own it, and who are we buying it from? And then I have another question after that, but maybe Commissioner Abel, what's your thought process there?
Well, I mean, I think the buying it question would be better answered by Bill or John. I'm not sure we're buying it from anybody. It's neglected, so we're already maintaining it. So it makes sense that we just take ownership over it so that we can do work there. I mean, if you drive by there, it's
Sure.
debris everywhere. I mean, it's become a dumping site.
Yeah, but does it add liability? You know, someone goes in their Halloween, trips over a headstone, hurts themselves because we can't keep it up to the way that it should be. That's my concern. Also, is there a cathedral or a church or some kind of worship house on that property?
No, I mean, it's connected.
It's just a cemetery.
There's a house in the back of it, but that house is vacant.
Okay.
So I mean, just the location, just so everybody understands, it's directly across the street from, well, not direct, it's across the street from the Italian American Club,
Okay, yeah, that's
West One Avenue.
So I don't, I mean, I just, I think it's great that you want to, I mean, you know, show respect for the people that's buried there. My big fear is that you have about 5 acres, maybe not 5, maybe 4 acres, maybe 5 acres in Garrett Hill at the Radnor United Methodist Church. There's a good chance that that church folds, and if there's not an endowment for that cemetery, we're going to have the same type of mess. But I don't know if owning it there's an upside. I just think that we're just increasing we still have to mow it, but now we're just increasing our liability. So that's kind of my thinking, unless someone can steer me in another direction. Thanks.
So we can take this property over just by getting 20 to 25 signatures of, does it have to be people that live like right around it? Like,
I mean, it should be township residents or people that are aware of it. It's a petition, Lisa, and then that gets filed in county court. We'd have to get it in front of a judge who would then issue an order approving the township's, ownership and maintenance responsibilities.
John, if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like the petition of 25 or more citizens residing within a radius of 5 miles of the burial ground.
Right. This is a 1925 bill. Do you have the copy I sent you, 1925 statute?
1923.
Oh, excuse me.
I mean, I guess I'm struggling with like, what's the alternative? If we're already mowing. If we're already mowing it, do we already establish some sort of liability anyway?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you. I'm sorry. I was asking John.
Yeah, I mean, look, as soon as you touch it and you start maintaining it, someone could, claim that you didn't maintain it properly, they fell. It's like any public park that you own. There's going to be some liability. It may be that if it's cleaned up and there's trails in there and it's walkable and it's signed, you can limit that. But, right now, my recollection, I haven't, like I said, I was there maybe 6-7 years ago. I have not been there since, but it was an eyesore, pretty visible eyesore at the time.
Just one other perspective to that, and as part of our conversations it's obviously not an ideal situation that the cemetery has gone defunct, and it's become our responsibility. But moving forward with the petition, just from a legal perspective, documents the process, and then we turn around and we insure it like we would any other public property. The maintenance, and I don't want to speak for Commissioner Abel, but the maintenance is important because without it, it becomes a nuisance, becomes an area for people to vandalize, to hang out, to probably not an ideal situation. The maintenance is important to keep the area clear and safe. And again, in terms of ensuring it to make sure that the township is protected in the event that a lawsuit or if something does happen, then we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's and making sure that we are at least protected on the insurance side as well.
Well, I understand the nuisance property issue. We had one in my ward for a long time, and the township did have to deal with it. We were able to get some of the money back, though, that we invested into it. But I mean, if we're already maintaining it.
I guess there are other costs to it than just maintenance.
The county record
Sorry.
here the county record shows the parcel is belonging to First Baptist Church of Wayne, care of Central Baptist Church, 106 West Lancaster Avenue, purchased in 2008 or acquired at $1. It's an exempt property, so nobody's paying tax on it, but it looks like it has an owner. I don't know if that changes anybody's mind.
So Central owns it?
Well,
The owner,
I think we need to know if somebody else has ownership, and it may just be that we need to poke them and say that they are neglecting their property. Whether it's a codes issue or something like that. If it's just getting the right person over there to take care of it, and relieve us of insuring it, maintaining it, and protecting the dignity of that space.
yeah, I don't have any problem with cutting it, maintaining it, because it's a nuisance for the neighbors. But I wouldn't say that we should acquire title to it in fee. Wouldn't think we'd want to do that, but in any event, there's an owner, First Baptist Church of Wayne, care of Central Baptist Church, 106 West Lancaster Ave.
Yeah, I don't think either of those entities exist anymore, Rich. Because that would have been around the time I was looking into it. Like 2009, 2010, when I first became aware of it, and we tracked those two entities you just mentioned. I don't think they exist, but we can look again.
Is this is there anything historically important about this? I mean, do the sites go back to very, very long time ago? Is it more modern?
No, there's a few modern plots in there. There's some plots that date back to the Civil War era with probably a good, at least a solid dozen vets are buried there. So that's part of that's one of, so in my mind, there's two real volunteer projects here. There's one that's the cleanup, and then there's more of a research historical project where some of the schools in the area and other organizations have expressed interest to do research and recreate the plaques on those plots, just to better help understand who's buried there and what their military service and what they were able to offer their country.
Would
I'll
it be
say-
possible to run down to say, I mean, it seems to me that, national and international churches probably also have processes about taking on abandoned cemeteries within their faith. So I'm curious as to whether there is a body regionally or locally who would be glad to step in and do that for their former parishioners. Before before the township does. I mean, we may be stepping into something that's not our place within that faith community. I'd at least like to run down, as Commissioner Booker seems to have found an owner, whether or not that's still the legitimate entity that oversees this, but there may be something within the Baptist church that where they care for old cemeteries. I agree, though, the maintenance is important to make sure that the neighborhood doesn't have a dangerous property. So I'd like to get to that solution. But I don't want to step in into an organization that may want to, be alerted that this is even an issue. Maybe it's fallen off their records.
What's the pleasure of the board? Do we want this to come back at a subsequent meeting? Do we want to wait for the residents to come up with a petition for us? I don't think that we're in a position right now to vote one way or the other. We don't have a motion in front of us. This isn't on the regular agenda. And I feel like this isn't developed well enough, but what do we want to do?
Well, yeah, so I'll kind of second what Commissioner Maroney said. I think that we should direct Bill as a board to reach out to whatever Baptist, either on a local level or a national level, to see what they want to do, because this is their, does it revert back? I can speak a little bit about the Radnor United Methodist Church, that if it goes defunct, it reverts back to the family and the bloodline from the 1800s. I don't necessarily know that this is the case, but we should talk to whatever Baptist community to see what their, if they want it back, or what their desire is, before we start going ahead and taking it. So that would be my suggestion, is that if the board can track down, as Commissioner Maroney said, a local or regional parishioner, to see what they want to do with it. So.
But in the meantime, I definitely am not opposed and I'm definitely for maintaining it to make sure that that's a acceptable property. How big is it? Did we say it's 4 acres?
No,
No, a
half
half
acre.
acre.
But sorry, just one more thing. Pardon me, Commissioner Maroney. Yeah. So, and then I'll just follow up by saying I think buying it should be a last resort, and we should only consider doing that if there's, I hate to say it, I don't want to say upside to the township, but if there is plots that we could resell or do something to try to recoup some of our costs, because it just seems that it's a huge liability. We can mow it and that's it and walk away from it, but the kind of reminds me of that light at Conestoga, as soon as you touch it, you own it. This is not anything that I think we want to own, period.
Okay, well, do we want to direct staff to make those inquiries? I think that makes sense to me.
That's fine.
I'm okay with that.
I'm seeing a general consensus. That's good enough for me. Old business, item 6A, Early's Lake update.
Actually, Jack, I have a new business. Can we go back to new business before we start old business?
We can do new business.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. It's nice to put it on the agenda, but just go ahead. What do you need?
Just real quick, when it comes to the vacancy in Ward 3, I don't know if Bill's available, but how many How many letters have we gotten from people interested in? Bill?
He may not be by his machine.
All
I
right, so
see
why don't,
it's-
I'll do that at the end of old business. That's fine.
Okay.
Commissioner Borowski wants to.
Early's Lake update,
Jack?
Commissioner Borowski. Yep,
Oh, just sorry. Bill just had to step out really quickly. He'll be right back in.
no worries. Do you know Peggy? That's put you on the spot.
I have seen one so far.
Okay.
Just,
Thank
can you
you.
confirm? Sorry, do you mind confirming with Bill when he comes back in?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, third tries the charm. Lisa.
Okay, I will keep this brief. I just wanted to let everybody know, and can I share, can I share my screen? Am I able to do that?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. So I know that we've talked about, why isn't it opening? Okay. I've been before you before, and we've talked about Earls Lake, and you guys have been very supportive of, some things we tried to do there in order to save the lake. And I want to just acknowledge Steve and Bill and John Rice, who we went on many neighbor meetings, meetings with the DEP as we tried to work through the dam issue. But the dam was breached back in October and the project was finished up. What you see is a before and an after. And 2 weekends ago, so Earls Lake itself, the property that's left or what was there is in Newtown Township. I met with Cindy Malhallo, who is the EAC with the EAC in Newtown Township. And oh my gosh, his name is escaping me. The Newtown Township supervisor. How is his name totally escaping me? I'm having like a senior moment. But one of the Newtown Township supervisors, they all serve at large. And he came and met me, and I will remember his name, I swear I will. And I showed them what was left. Right now, this is the view that most of Radnor Township is looking at. The people that live right by the lake and the people that live in the vicinity. It is a mud pit, which is what I think we knew it would be once the lake was breached. The Newtown Township, there was a remediation plan that was supposed to have been put in place by the Green Country Village who owned the property. And Newtown Township is looking to see if they have initiated that and if they are doing that work. It looks like, based on what is here, they have done nothing. But Newtown Township is looking into that because that was part of the requirement for them to get a demolition permit as well as a grading permit, I believe. So Leonard Altieri, his name just came to me. I'm sorry. Leonard Altieri. Leonard has been great, super helpful, and is kind of championing this on the Newtown side. But I just wanted to let the board know, because I had made that outreach. I am going to, so in speaking with Margaret, who from our EAC, we're going to meet out there at the lake, or the former site of the former lake, just to see what could potentially be done there. It is, like I said, a mud pit. There is a creek forming through there, which is what DEP said would happen. But right now, to me, it's just a big empty space that will just be filled with invasives. Like I said, Newtown Township, that's in their township. They're worrying about that. Leonard is on it. They're working through that. But what I would like to ask the board, and Steve, don't kill me when I ask for this, is for Radnor Township. So Newtown Township is also going to be talking with DEP. And I would like Radnor Township to join with Newtown Township in talking with DEP and getting DEP to come and look at what is left behind. Because what is left there, I don't think is what they knew would be left behind. I don't think DEP ever came and looked at the site. I don't know that they ever fully evaluated. The other thing that I'm concerned about is the neighbors that are downstream. There's a little pond. There's a ton of silt that is collecting in that pond, and that ultimately flows into the Darby Creek. I'm afraid that what is coming out of that, what's left is adding to our MS4. So I'm not suggesting this right now. That might be something we want to investigate, but I think that DEP needs to do that for us. They never did a downstream study. We asked for a downstream study. That never happened. And I think that the negative impacts on us as the downstream recipients of what is left of that lake is detrimental to the township in many ways. I'm also concerned that the project itself is not performing as it was supposed to. There are rocks that the water is supposed to flow through that has become completely clogged with silt. There are the stream is finding other channels. It is basically directed at Radnor residents' homes. And I think DEP needs to come and look at that project and evaluate it, because I think that it is, for as much as the dam was failing, I think this project is going to fail. And I think the negative impacts on Radnor residents downstream, the potential for that is great. So I think just for the very first step, I'd like to be able to direct the township staff to reach out to DEP and join with Newtown Township in getting DEP to come and look at what is left and the mess I think that has been made of this project and what that could potentially mean to Radnor residents. And that's my soapbox, my Earls Lake soapbox for this evening.
I would second that. I'm convinced. Is there any commissioner comment?
So then it's really is a mess. It really looks, that's really a shame that that happened. And I don't have any problem with staff, you know, Steve or Bill working with Newtown to get DEP to come out. I just don't think they're going to be successful. DEP is going to come out and say, put it on the list. There's 1,000 things in Pennsylvania like that. And they're bureaucrats, and they, you know, it's like, well, they made a choice. It's better to do that than to leave it like it was. And it's not in Radnor.
Well,
So
you know,
maybe a screen, isn't there? Couldn't we do a screen or something?
so so you're right, that the property isn't in Radnor, it is in Newtown, and Newtown is looking at it. And when I met with Cindy and Leonard, they had some really interesting ideas. Newtown has a new and a very comprehensive greenways plan. So there is some potential, but that's for them to discuss and worry about. You know, eventually, you know, maybe we can partner with them in some way and things that could continue on through Radnor. We had a really a great discussion about that, but you know, I think right now, if we can get DEP to come, I don't know, Steve, if you have any thoughts. I just think it's a mess. It's a mess over there. It's been allowed to be a mess. The project, we did not like the project to begin with. I think that there's a potential that at some point, you know, Green Country Village is going to be liable for something that happens to the residents on the Radnor side when it comes to this project. So
we did let DEP, Commissioner, I guess you were on the emails when we noted that where the project ended, there was considerable erosion. I thought in one email they were going to take a look at it, and then I believe after that they said we're done. You know, the project is done, and they said, you know, eventually the mud flats, if you will fill in with some type of grasses over time. And they know that. And
invasives, it's going to be a mess.
And I think they're aware of that, but I don't see any harm in bringing them out. For the Newtown folks, we had talked a long time ago when we were originally talking with DEP about creating floodplain, about proper plantings throughout, even a boardwalk for educational purposes. And you may recall DEP's answer is like, if that's something some entity wants to do, fine. We're here to have the dam breached, and this was the end result. I don't see any harm in giving them sending the folks we were talking to an email to request them to come out. I don't know that they're going to have much to say about what you are saying, which is true. It's going to fill in with invasives, but perhaps we can bring them out to look at where the project stopped and that erosive condition that's there, and we work backwards into the stream area.
Well, I think they need to see the project, and I think the project needs to be evaluated if it's viable. I mean, I don't think it's performing the way anyone imagined it would perform. And it's a concern for the residents.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know that DEP feels that way. I know we do. All of us were not happy with the whole project as it went through. I don't want to speak for DEP, but I think we absolutely can bring them out here. And like I said, I think we start with the erosive conditions at the low end of the project, and then take them back.
Does anyone object to that? And I just also wanted to alert the board because I have been in contact with Newtown Township. And Leonard, I sincerely apologize for blanking on your name, but Leonard's been great. And so is Cindy.
Well, as long as Newtown drives it, I guess, certainly we can be supportive.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know that it's an eyesore and could potentially cause problems. I do have a question. Wasn't there an issue around a particular species of turtle or something are they gone?
Yeah, they removed the turtles.
Yeah, they relocated them.
They relocated them to the Springton Lake. So yeah.
Save the turtles.
They saved the turtles, they did, but not the heron. Not the heron that's left there, and he has no lake anymore. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the assistance of those over in Newtown. So we'll go from there. Thank you.
What about the screen idea? Can't you put up some kind of arborvitae or some screen to screen it from Radnor?
So if you want to come look at it, I mean, the houses, so the houses basically sit up. This is down and out. So if you're looking out over it and it's down, the mud is down below. I mean, it's a mess. If you ever drive by, it's right on Earls Lane, just up past Malin Road. It's awful. And, I'm concerned about mosquitoes. I mean, it's everything we said every time we talked to DEP, and they did not care. They could have cared less. So.
I'm sure.
That's it. That's all I got. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for indulging.
Excellent. So,
Thanks, Sean. Did you want to follow
yeah,
up?
Yeah, Bill, how many, just for the Ward 3 vacancy, how many letters of interest have you gotten?
Just one.
Okay.
And is that's on the website, how to contact, what is necessary to indicate interest? We are encouraging Third Ward residents to get in touch with you. Is that right, Bill?
Yes. Yeah, it's on the front page now. It's been pushed down a little bit. We'll push that back to the top.
Yeah, if there's a way to pin that to the top so that it's, a priority notice.
Yep. Very easy to do. We will do that. I'll send the email right now.
great. Final public participation. Do we have any final comment from the public? Mr. Gemmer, you're up.
Yes, thanks. Baron Gemmer, South Wayne Avenue. one of the items on the agenda tonight, the density mod zoning amendment, reminded me of one that we actually adopted 6 months ago to the day, the C3 townhome zoning amendment. And at the time, I had brought up some unintentional errors with that. And I believe there was a willingness of the board to proceed with those corrections, but that couldn't be done at that time because of the development that was relying upon them to go through. The C3 townhome density for residential, I believe, is one of the highest in the zoning code, and these inadvertent errors could actually increase that slightly. So it's not something I think we should just let go. And so my ask would be that we get that process started again to get those corrections moving. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other public comment? Going once, going twice, I will move to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor,
Second.
say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you all.